If you met Anneliese Michel in the late 1960s, you would have found a quiet, polite young woman from a strict German Catholic family. She spent her days attending Mass, praying, and living a deeply ordinary, grounded life. But that quiet life fractured violently. She began locking herself inside her bedroom. Family members reported finding her mutilating her own hands and legs with her teeth, and even drinking her own blood from the floor. Anyone trying to enter her space or offer help was met with aggressive, animalistic attacks. The pious teenager was gone, replaced by something entirely hostile. To see a healthy mind deteriorate into total chaos forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality. Our control over our own consciousness is fragile, and when it breaks, the descent is terrifying. What happened to Anneliese is a heavily documented historical event. Her deterioration eventually led to 67 official Catholic exorcisms.
Decades later, her case divides everyone who studies it. Neurologists view her death as a catastrophic failure of modern psychiatric care, while others maintain she was the victim of a literal, documented demonic possession. To figure out what actually consumed her, we have to put both clinical psychiatry and ancient religious doctrine on trial, side by side, and see which one aligns with the evidence. In the mid-20th century psychiatric wards, doctors approached Anneliese's terrifying symptoms through a strictly clinical lens. They diagnosed her with severe epilepsy and psychosis. Using EEG machines, neurologists mapped how auditory hallucinations work. When patients have deficits in the left temporal lobe of the brain, they lose the ability to recognize their own inner voice. Instead, they process their own thoughts as external, hostile voices screaming at them. Psychiatry also points to what are called culture-bound syndromes. This is a sociological concept where a patient's cultural background entirely dictates the specific themes of their delusions. Looking at this photograph of a Catholic Mass from that era, we see the deeply religious environment Anneliese grew up in. Her strict upbringing supplied her brain with a vocabulary of demons, hellfire, and damnation, which her psychosis then weaponized against her. Today, the diagnostic manual used by psychiatrists, the DSM-5, specifically recognizes trance and possession disorders as extreme dissociative responses to psychological trauma. Through the medical lens, there is no supernatural invasion. It is a tragic feedback loop where a diseased brain uses a person's most deeply held beliefs to terrorize them. But the medical diagnosis failed to explain several anomalies. Her family turned to the church because Anneliese began displaying behaviors that defied clinical logic. The Catholic Church has strict rules for identifying demonic invasion. The first indicators are speaking fluently in unlearned languages and possessing hidden knowledge. Anneliese exhibited both. Then came physical anomalies. Witnesses documented her throwing adult men across the room, displaying extraordinary strength requiring heavy restraint. This image shows a crucifix, the exact type of sacred object Anneliese developed a sudden, violent aversion to. For exorcists, reacting aggressively to holy water or a cross is a definitive indicator of an invading entity. When doctors cannot explain superhuman strength or sudden fluency in unlearned languages, the supernatural explanation stops sounding like ancient superstition and starts looking like a highly plausible alternative. Caught between these two frameworks, Anneliese entered a horrific middle ground. Her medical treatments were largely abandoned, and authority was handed over to the clergy to begin extreme religious rituals. The physical toll of these rituals is captured by the clinical term marasmus. This is a condition of severe bodily wasting caused by prolonged starvation. Enduring 67 exorcisms required grueling physical exertion, leaving her body unable to sustain itself. The desperation of her caretakers, both the doctors who gave up and the priests who stepped in, ultimately created a secondary source of trauma. The very interventions designed to save her became the things that destroyed her physical body. The exorcisms only stopped for one reason. Anneliese's body suffered total catastrophic failure. She died of malnutrition and dehydration, weighing just 68 pounds. She was never cured, and she was never saved. Her death left a massive cultural footprint. Looking at this photograph of crowds lined up to see The Exorcist, we see how her real-world ordeal inspired mainstream horror to constantly probe the boundary between clinical skepticism and spiritual belief. What makes the Anneliese Michel case so enduring is the total lack of closure. We have physical evidence and witness testimony that perfectly supports the medical argument, and we have evidence that supports the supernatural one, but absolute consensus simply does not exist. We are left staring at an unresolved question. Was this the complete collapse of a sick, misunderstood mind, or was it a true demonic invasion? The answer might not matter. The true horror of this story is the terrifying realization of human vulnerability. There are breaking points in the human experience where the analytical safety nets of modern science and the comforting rituals of ancient faith are both utterly powerless to save us.